Underbelly program. And now your host, Underbelly.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Brock Lawley program. My name is Brock Lawley. I am your fearless host. Had a conversation with a dear soul. I'm going to go with dear soul recently about socialism and capitalism. And this woman was shaking. I mean, she was visceral. She was shaking when she talked about how much she hated capitalism. She just hated it. And it reminded me that it had been a while. It had been a while since I talked about why and what I defend on the show. What is it that I think? I mean, me, like most people, we get caught up in the current, the swan current or whatever, the salmon current of the daily news, the daily headlines, putting out the fires of the left, in my opinion, are starting all over the fruited plains by way of ideas. Not enough times, I think, defending what we think, why we think it. Listen, I am a capitalist, big time capitalist. And I came to those ideas and those thoughts in my, early 20s, I suppose. They sort of bounced around in my head for a number of years before then. Yours truly might have even considered himself a liberal before then. I don't know if I ever went that far. It's possible. But like most people, I was just kicking around, the ways of the world, and ideas were bantying back and forth. And I came to develop these opinions of capitalism based on its fruit, based on its prosperity. But to this day, I constantly log my horns with people, and more so now than ever. There was a time when capitalism was just an understood thing, in the sense that the United States of America owed its prosperity, at the very least, just its prosperity, to the capitalist system and the fact that free markets existed. Not in its truest form, and that's to my great dismay, but, free markets nonetheless. We were not a socialist nation, thus we prospered. And I don't know whether it was enough soft in the belly by way of a people, whether we were plush, whether we were so rich that we lost sight of some very fundamental things. I think a public education system that was seized and hijacked. I could go on and on as to why we lost our compass in this regard. But you have people, and now a major party, actually actively criminalizing capitalism in America, in the United States of America, of all places, and promoting socialism, despite the fact that even as they do so, which is always, a lot of things don't shock me anymore, but even as the left, the Democrat Party, the arm of leftism, the tip of the spear of leftism in American politics, even as socialism is crumbling, and crumbling spectacularly, by the way. Food lines, riots in South America, socialism crumbling in Europe, in the case of Greece and France and Spain, etc. We have leftists, and piggybacking on, I suppose, a wave of complacency and ignorance from the American people as to why all this wonderful convenience and why all this prosperity is in their midst and is seemingly their birthright. I suppose the thought is that just helicoptered out of a thin blue sky. And you might laugh or giggle at that, but the level of detachment from reality or understanding of not only our own nation, but fundamental truths is truly spectacular. It's remarkable in this time. So for all I know, there are huge swaths of millennials that are just like, well, of course, there's just always been, awesomeness everywhere. A standard of living, the envy of the world. It's just, obviously, we arrived here, the pilgrimage was rough, and then we got here, and it's just iPhones. Everybody got an iPhone right off the Santa Maria. Ladies and gentlemen, sadly, though, that is not the case. What actually turned America into a fraction of colonies that took on the greatest military force in human history and against all odds defeated them was a free market enterprise, was the notion that you, despite your last name, can reach for the stars by way of your own standard of living. And that prosperity and success is not an impediment or a negative to the person or your neighbor or your brother beside you, despite his own economic circumstances. That was the thinking. The thinking slightly shifted when the left got in trouble. I really believe this. I'm telling you what I think. I think the left gets in trouble. I think they get in trouble by way of PR. I think they get in trouble by way of messaging. I think they beat certain victims into the ground and they cling on like a drowning man to another piece of driftwood. In this case, it was the prosperous. In the United States of America, it was very unheard of to just randomly hate somebody that's doing well financially. The left needed villains. I mean, they've been in charge of government for so long. What are they going to do? Blame the government? So they needed a new villain, and they found that villain in business. Business certainly made it easy for them as Enron and all these ridiculous, horrible, greedy situations emerged at that same time. So it was a low-hanging fruit victim. But they clung to it nonetheless, and they whitewashed away, projecting all that dissatisfaction with economic circumstances, dissatisfaction with joblessness, and essentially just leftist policy. The dissatisfaction was sort of placed onto the prosperous in this country, and with that came a villainization of an economic system that brought more prosperity to the world than anybody even dreamed of. I mean, the Queen of England did not live with the level of conveniences in the in the 1500s, the 1600s, the 1700s, the 1800s that your average person on welfare lives with today. I mean, the level of prosperity is astonishing. Now, here's essentially what the two camps are, because there's really no sense in getting into the weeds on this. There's two camps, right? There's this notion that you have the right to prosper, to succeed, to trade, to endeavor, to entrepreneur yourself into nosebleed heights. And that state aggression from the state, and let's be honest, that's what all government is. It should not be allowed to stifle that, should not be allowed to seize that, should not be allowed to create laws that separate you from the successes and the fruits and spoils of your endeavors. I mean, these philosophies are I'm boiling them down. Granted, they're much more nuanced than this. But this was the thinking, that freedom and liberty trump statist aggression, statist subversion, statist forcing itself upon the situation. And I often think one of the things that convinced me, and I mean this, is this notion that let's say you live in a neighborhood and you're doing pretty good. You're making some money. So you put up a little white picket fence in your backyard or whatever. And you buy a new lawnmower. And you buy a new weed eater. Maybe even get whatever those pebbles are people are always throwing on their yard to cheat and make it look greener. Whatever. You do all that stuff. And you throw a new coat of paint on your garage. And, whatever the case might be. You do all that kind of stuff, right? Veneer, lawnscaping type of things. Now, you don't do that to your neighbor's house. You're not buying your neighbor a new lawnmower. You're not even mowing your lawn or your neighbor's lawn. But you're holding down your fort, so to speak, if you're thinking about the horticulture realm here. You're holding it down. You're keeping everything tight. You got those little edges. You ever walk by a neighborhood and you got those the guys keeping like a real straight edge. The grass just looks like manicured. I mean, you like it, right? It's cool. It's like, wow, man, this place, man. They got their act together around here, right? Isn't that what you think? Be honest. That's what you think. The little middle-aged woman's walking a dog. Everything's safe. Everything seems like it's maintained. The house isn't dilapidated. There's not that going on. So my economic philosophy and the way I kind of, came to think of things is that the left will tell you that all that behavior is not altruistic because the guy's only mowing his lawn or the guy's only holding down painting his garage or whatever the case may be. But I've come to see that that's actually not how life really works, and that's not how things really are. Because what's actually happening is just by that man or woman or citizen going the extra mile, making his or her property looking really great, everybody kind of sees it, likes it. Property value is actually, believe it or not, you can quantify this. You can economically look at statistics that prove this. Property value of all the houses go up. And just because of human nature, everybody else seems to step up their game. By the way, I live in a little neighborhood. Everybody else steps up their game, and they're even if they're not willing to go out there and do the whole green pebbles or whatever I alluded to earlier. They're stepping it up. They're mowing more than they would. All that stuff. So slowly but surely, you have this whole trickle effect of goodness. A neighborhood starts to clean up, pride. Obviously, this is all stemming from personal ownership, because why would you do this if you didn't own it? And onward and onward. And from that, you can extrapolate all the way to economic prosperity. Businesses are more likely to open in these places, so on and so forth. I mean, you can really literally see the ripple effects. It's like throwing a stone in a pond. And the reverse is true too. It's called the broken window effect. You can walk down a street, you can see the paint's chipping off of everything, windows are all smashed out. This is going to have a ripple effect as well. People are going to have less pride in where they live. They're going to have less pride in the property there. They're going to put forth less effort. They're going to put less money. They're going to invest less money. This is going to affect business, and you can just do this and do this and do this. So my point here is that, does this sound like it's going straight down the altruistic plate? No, it doesn't. It might even smack of selfishness to the untrained ear. But there are factors in lively, and that's what an economy is. It's a lively animal, reacting to stimuli, reacting to habits, reacting to fickle moods, reacting to so many different things. And these are all the things in an economy. And the best system man has ever figured out is the wild one. Is to say, look, you get to prosper you. Yes, you get to think about you. You get to work for you. You get to enrich yourself. You get to grow your wealth. Now, does this marry, for example, I'm a believer in God's word. Does this marry step for step, stride for stride with the word of God? No, I don't think so. But then again, no economic plan this side of the kingdom of God marries with God's economic system or God's way, lockstep, because we're living in a fallen world. None of these systems do. But this one brings the most prosperity, the most jobs, the most economic vibrancy out of all the other ideas. There are fantasies. I mean, we call those utopian pursuits. They're often found in the scribblings of leftist legislation, but they don't exist. They're just in some dude's head. Nobody's actually pulled any of that off. What I'm describing to you, capitalism, we've pulled off with splendor. Take it from 1776 all the way up to the free time you live in, and the proof is in the pudding. Proof is in the pudding. So for these reasons and so many more that I've seen capitalism transform economic squalor. I've seen capitalism transfer wealth upon third world nations. It's a mindset. It's a way of looking at things. The state does not get to be an aggressor. The state does not get to use force. The state does not get to take that same equity and distinguish it or dispense it as it sees fit. Now, a lot of people don't trust their fellow man, and a lot of people, they think that if the state, the all-knowing, all-good Wizard of Oz, which, by the way, has proven not to be all-knowing and certainly not to be all-good, over and over and over again, repeatedly, like a clock striking the hour. It's never. I mean, the federal government in any situation has proven to be nothing but failure. Has proven to be nothing but not honest, not trustworthy. All situations will be a mess. You have to accept that premise, right? If the government's involved in allocating these resources, there will be a mess. I evidenced you the last 8 years. If man is left to take care of his fellow citizen in need, that will also be a mess. And occasionally those needs will not be met. And to say otherwise is a lie. But it is the best. It is the best system for the most people. And if you couple an economic system like this with a moral underbelly, which is certainly what America did. America had a Judeo-Christian pulse to it, where you feared God, where you understood that this is larger than yourself, that the world is bigger than yourself. Well, then you have philanthropists springing up all over the place. That's why all these hospitals and these schools are all named after gazillionaires, because this is just the nature of the United States of America, and it proved to work. And again, the statist force forcing itself on on a citizen body or a body politic that ends in bread lines and riots and people starving. And this isn't Brock's opinion. You can read this right now. Right this second, Venezuela is starving its citizens under an economic model where the state is using coercion, force, both military force, legislative force. It does not work, ladies and gentlemen. More people are suffering. More people are poor. There's less prosperity. That, ladies and gentlemen, is why I'm a capitalist. That is why when you hear about capitalism smeared, I'm not talking about crony capitalism. I'm not talking about Barack Obama's trying to seize that word, where the only way you can do business and succeed is to crawl in bed and then thus bribe Hillary Clinton's campaign coffers, or give to Hillary Clinton's mob charity fund. That's crony capitalism. That's not. I want nothing to do with that. I'm talking about actual free markets, or as close to it as we can get. That's what I'm advocating for. That's what I think works. That's what I think helps the poor. That's what I think helps the most people. Will there be a huge differential in wealth in that system? Yes. Will some people be rich and some people be poor? Yes. Will there be need? Yes. Will there be homeless? Yes. Will there be you go down the list? Yes. But it will be better than the alternative. And I live in this world with realities. And that's why I advise you to think a second time about these things. MSNBC's wrong. Comedy Central's wrong. Jon Stewart's wrong. Barack Obama's wrong. Hillary Clinton's wrong. Hugo Chavez was wrong. I'm right. Thank you for listening to the Brock Lawley program. Be a people of fortitude, character, courage.